Welcome to Inside XCity, a behind-the-scenes look at the journalists and their work.
So Tridimas has reported on a city lecturer's experience of the Beirut Blast for XCity magazine. So why was Dr. Harb there in Beirut?
So Dr. Harb is from Lebanon and she is working on a project about hate speech, a research project, and so she was in Beirut this summer working on workshops with Lebanese journalists, teaching them about hate speech.
And just for some context, what was the blast?
So the blast there was 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate, a chemical stored in the port of Beirut, and there was some kind of fire in the warehouse, and then it just exploded one afternoon in August last year.
Gosh, okay, so just to reassure listeners, is Dr. Harb okay now?
She is. She actually was, when I Zoom called her, she was saying how impressive the plastic surgeon was. She doesn't have any scars, but she had like 3 injuries on her face. But she's fine. She's fine in teaching.
And when you spoke to her, because obviously it was some time after the blast, how did she reflect on the situation? What was her kind of reaction like?
She was very willing to talk about it. She actually told me that she found it quite helpful to be talking about it and writing about it. Straight after the blast, she appeared on, I think, the BBC Radio 4 and wrote a number of articles about it, which she said that she found really helpful. I think something that she took away from it was how different it was being involved in an event which she would normally report on.
So we're joined by Sophie, a social media editor for XCity+, and you've written a piece for XCity+. Can you tell us a bit about it?
I can indeed. So I wrote a piece called Journalism, OCD and Me, which is about my struggles with OCD, and the question came to mind, does OCD help my journalism? Just because I'm such a perfectionist and I think I'm an alright writer, and I thought maybe it's the perfectionism that means I check over stuff to a point that it's quite good. And then the more I started to think about that, the more problematic it became, because I started thinking of the ways it also hinders my writing, i.e. it makes me take quite a long time because I have to go to the beginning of a sentence and check over, delete things, be really hard on myself, and then in turn that makes me procrastinate from writing. I just wanted to explore the topic a little bit more. I went into it thinking, you know what, OCD really helps my writing, and then the more I looked into it and I spoke to other journalists, I started to question that, and I thought, you know what, I actually think it makes me procrastinate because I get embroiled in this web of hating what I've written and deleting and rewriting, and sometimes I think to avoid all of that, which can be quite a torturous process at times, I sometimes just don't write.
And why was it important to get other journalists to add comments for this piece?
I think OCD is a struggle that is had by many but is very individual to each person, and I thought maybe this is something that only affects me, and by talking to lots of different journalists I realised that we actually all struggled with similar things. Like the procrastination came up a lot, worrying about what people were thinking, checking over syntax obsessively, and that putting that out there makes people feel less alone, more like they can talk about it. And it's not just an individual piece, but one trying to explore journalism as a whole and journalists who suffer from OCD.
It sounds like you learnt a lot from writing the piece. Was it a hard one to write, or did you consider it more of an opportunity to be quite open about your OCD?
I think a bit of both. I think actually sitting down and writing it, this was one that I really procrastinated, just because I wanted to make sure I got it completely right and not give any misinformation. But I think it will be helpful for a lot of people out there who might have not even realised that their obsessive checking was a form of OCD, and maybe make them feel a bit more normal or find coping mechanisms. But yeah, it wasn't the easiest piece. Like, I wrote a piece about Wuthering Heights, the song, for Bookish, and that just flowed, and that was like, I'd look forward to writing that, whereas this one, it was like I had to dig deep and dredge up negative emotions. But I'm glad I did it, and I hope everyone enjoys it.
Tune in on Monday for Rihanna discussing sexual harassment in the newsroom, and Ella Doyle telling us all about a new arts and culture magazine for book lovers.